Welcome back to AI Demystified for Executives. In our last episode, we explored the potential of AI agents to revolutionize how businesses operate. Today, we'll shift gears and get a little bit more practical, focusing on how to implement these powerful tools within your organization and delve into the emerging regulatory landscape and its implication for businesses. I'm your host, Andrew Psaltis, and I'm excited to guide you through the key considerations for successfully integrating AI agents into your workflows. Let's first kind of set the strategic foundation, if you will. And to do this, there's a couple of things that we need to take into consideration. The first is aligning to business goals. You really need to start with the why. I think Simon Sinek had it great with a book of start with why. You really need to do that here. By doing that and starting with why, the why is identifying the pain points and really the pain points you're trying to solve. So whether that's automating repetitive tasks, improving customer experience, or optimizing supply chains. Really starting with those business objectives before implementing. It is crucial to align your AI agent strategy. Really could think of this as a bolt-on, if you will, to your overall AI strategy. But your AI agent strategy should really have specific, measurable business goals. In fact, your AI strategy should as well. You really need to have strategic, specific, measurable business goals that you could track the ROI for. So things like, are you looking to automate repetitive tasks? Are you going to enhance the customer experience or optimize specific operational processes? Really connect those back, though, to your business objectives. If you have a strategic objective to enhance customer experience, then start to drill into how that manifests in your AI strategy, and will that manifest in an AI agent strategy? Defining these clear objectives will help guide your technology choices and ensure, or can't really ensure, but improve your chances of realizing a return on your AI investment. Now that's a whole other topic that we'll go into at a different time, but that return on investment is going to be a lot more than just technology choices. Right? There's a lot more that needs to get done for that. But if you think about this, Siemens has their industrial co-pilot to address skilled labor shortages through automation. Okay, so this is a strategic objective that they had of we need to increase the industrial software that's being written, right? The frequency of that, the speed of that, the quality of it. And there aren't as many employees, if you will, or as much talent on the market to be able to build this software anymore. So they've used Industrial Copilot, an AI agent, to address this skill gap by having it write the software, then having the staff that they have be able to audit that. Right? Much faster for an engineer to be able to quickly audit software than to have lots of engineers writing it. And as you dig into this and you go from your business objectives, again, starting from the why are you doing this and what are those objectives, then you get into scoping the use cases. And think about the ideal characteristics, especially for agents. They should be repetitive and data intensive processes. So very repetitive tasks that are data intensive. Cross-functional tasks that require multi-system integration. Okay, so you think about using these where they're going to interact with many different systems. And it's a complex task that needs to get done and cross-functional. An agent may be a good candidate to use in that case. And it's clearly repetitive and data intensive, fit that bill. Right? And look for things that do have a high ROI potential. You want to make sure that you could actually get your return on this because it's going to take an investment on your behalf to be able to pull this off. In the previous episode, we talked about Oracle's general ledger agent, and its goal is to streamline month-end financial reconciliation. That clearly is a repetitive, data-intensive process that is cross-functional task, right? Multiple systems it's going to have to integrate with, but a tremendous ROI potential for them as well if they could get their month-end projections done and reconciliation faster. Then after you have these use cases, think about using a pilot program for a quick win. In this case, think about selecting narrow, high-impact projects. An example of this could be HR task automation or customer service chat agents. Again, it's something that is quick win, could be a pilot. You can measure the ROI. It'll certainly connect back to a use case and to a business objective. And then think about prioritizing the implementation. All right, so pick pilot projects in areas where AI agents can deliver quick wins and demonstrate value to your stakeholders. This is where, you think about HR. It could be a departmental function like HR or finance, or very specific customer-facing interaction. But make sure you pick something for the pilot that maps to a use case and objective that you could show a quick win. And this is going to take time to boil down to go from, let's just say we take the chatbot example, to go from an overall business objective of improving your customer experience to then identify a very narrow use case to then have a pilot program that leads you to a customer-facing chatbot that satisfies that use case and that business goal and gets you along the way. Something that you could quickly demonstrate. In order to make this successful, you're going to need to build internal expertise. And implementing AI agents effectively, it certainly requires more than just technology. There's going to have to be an investment in training your team on the fundamentals of AI, on agent design principles, and how to manage and monitor agent performance. You may want to consider bringing in external expertise if needed, but ultimately, the aim should be to build internal competency. These technologies can certainly lead to being a competitive differentiator, right? And your teams are going to understand best how you could augment your business and augment operations. And again, think about these as operational assistants to give you a competitive advantage or to make your business more profitable, to save money, to increase the operational efficiency of your business. So the ask would be for you to think about what areas of your business are most repetitive or data intensive and could benefit from AI agents. So as you think about, this first step of setting the objective and setting the strategic foundation, give that some thought. Ponder that of what areas are really most repetitive or data intensive and can benefit from AI agents. And it may be both, right? It may be repetitive and data intensive. Once you've identified that, and now you have an idea of, again, your objective, the use case, it's going to be a pilot program to get a quick win and really kind of learn as an organization. There's going to be your next decision of build versus buy. And to do this, understanding of, do you develop AI agents in-house or do you leverage pre-built solutions? There's many factors that contribute to this decision. The first is going to be evaluating your internal capabilities. Do you have the technical expertise? Are there data scientists and software engineers with experience in AI and agent development? If not, maybe a pre-built solution will be more feasible. But there's nothing wrong with saying, well, we haven't got there yet, but we're going to invest in getting there, and we're going to work on training our teams. I've seen models work, and I've worked in models where maybe there is a staff augmentation, and some of your existing team does get to work with, say, a vendor that offers consulting services to help you with the first phase of agent development. Right? So it's upskilling your team with hands-on, right? So taking theory and putting it into practice. The other thing too to think about is, what are your customization needs? When you're thinking about your internal capabilities, maybe you have a team that has some experience with AI and agent development. Maybe they're very eager to learn it if they haven't, right? But you think about this build versus buy of, how unique are your requirements? Arguably, chatbots are pretty common these days, right? And there's lots of vendors that offer almost off-the-shelf solutions to handle basic chatbots. By that same token, I have nothing against those vendors. A lot of them offer a very good product. If it's a simple use case, is it something that you could use as that pilot to get your team started to have the organization learn? So off-the-shelf solutions could suffice for some pretty common use cases. I'm not saying that you should think about building everything. Maybe you have very unique needs. But often you'll see like highly customized agents, they might require in-house development. You're going to have things that are really unique or different or interacting with different systems. It's probably going to be in-house development. Maybe it's a mixture of both. But it needs to kind of take this into consideration. With that complexity and customization, then you think about the integration complexity. How easily can an AI agent integrate with your existing systems and data sources? So if you start to look at different products that are on the market as you're thinking about doing a pilot program and thinking about your internal capabilities, a build versus buy decision, you need to give some thought to, what is the existing systems? What are those? What are the data sources? How easily will it be to integrate one of these agents? A lot of pre-built solutions will often, of course, have predefined integrations. It gets simplified deployment, but they may not integrate with your existing systems. So you need to give that some thought. And as you think about this and you think about the types of agents, there's different levels of sophistication of agents. So there's agents that are considered simple reflex agents. At the bottom of it, if you think about the simplicity, this is really a chatbot that routes customer inquiries based on keywords, or an agent that automatically flags suspicious transactions in a financial system. A very simple reflexive agent. There's then the next step of more model-based, where you may have an AI-powered inventory management system that can predict demand fluctuations based on historical data and external factors like weather patterns. That's so a little bit more complex. As you go up to complexity scale, then we'd have learning agents. And these, you could think about a recommendation engine that personalizes product suggestions based on the user's behavior and continuously refines its recommendations as it gathers more data. And then the last group and level of sophistication are goal-based agents. In this case, think about an AI marketing agent that autonomously manages advertising campaigns across multiple platforms to optimize for a specific conversion rate or a return on ad spend. So there's certainly trade-offs between complexity and implementation effort. I think you could clearly see that an agent that is a chatbot routing customer inquiries based on keywords is a lot simpler, even just conceptually, than an AI marketing agent that could autonomously manage your advertising campaigns, optimizing for conversion rate and or return on an ad spend, right? Two different ends of the spectrum there. The more sophisticated agents, obviously, are going to require greater investment in not just training, but also in the data that you have. Data is a foundation of this and really the pillar. And they're also going to require greater ongoing management. So you need to kind of take this into consideration so you can make a really informed decision about the level of agent sophistication that's appropriate for your organization where you are today. It is fantastic to have aspiration and have a plan as to where you're going to go. But if you're just getting started in this space, maybe a simple reflexive agent is the way to go. Again, tie it back to your business objective, the use case, and then a pilot program, and then keep chipping away at that business objective and taking on perhaps larger and larger, initiatives. Maybe they're not larger, but maybe more complex, right? You could see that if we took the customer service and the customer experience business objective, and then we boil that down and think about pilot programs from customer experience that you want to increase as that's your business objective, you could see how a simple reflex agent, like a chatbot, could certainly do that. You could also see how that could happen with a model-based, where you have inventory management, right? Part of customer experience is, where's my order? All right. I mean, you want to understand that. Just as an example, I had ordered something recently from a company, and it was around a couple of weeks ago, and it's free shipping. So of course I ordered something I was getting is quite heavy, a kettlebell. I'm into those types of crazy things, and their thank you email says that they usually ship within 24 hours. 2 weeks later, I still have no shipping notification from them. I sent an email and I have no response from them. So you think about that as a customer experience. I start to have doubts about the organization. And that's more of a model-based agent, right, of inventory management. It could be able to let me know that maybe they don't have the product. Maybe there is bad weather somewhere. Right? So they could communicate better with me. Yeah, that all would be in this customer experience. So you could probably think about customer experience across simple reflex, model-based, learning, and goal. So make sure you take these into consideration. Make sure that you think about meeting the organization where it is today, and then planning for how do you make these steps. Think about crawl, walk, run. Again, you should have an AI strategy. On top of that, there should be an AI agent strategy, or it could be just part of it. It doesn't need to be separate. But as you start to think about how are you going to use this technology, there should be some document that lives in your organization of what is the plan? What are the things that you're going to do and not do? Right? And as we touch on, governance and ethics later in this episode, those are also things that you'd want to have in your strategic plan. So now let's say that you've made the decision that it's going to be build versus buy, or even if you're still kind of thinking about it, we need to think about the technical implications and the technical implementation. The first thing that's going to come up when you build an agent is selecting the right large language model. This is really going to be important. The language model forms the core of your agents. So there's factors to consider here, such as the model's reasoning ability, its language proficiency, and the availability of pre-trained models for your specific domain. If you're in finance, there may be a finance-specific model. There may be one for retail. There may be one for manufacturing. So you really need to look at that of what really helps in your domain. Coding, if you're building something in the engineering space, right, of finding that model. It's some really interesting research, and I'll include the references in the show notes of a tool called GTA, which is a benchmark for general tool agents. And a recent research that was published in about having a product that could help you do these benchmarks. Okay, so that's something to take a look at. Again, the reference to it will be in the show notes. But as you think about the LLM and your agent's effectiveness, they're tied together. So your agent's effectiveness really does depend on this LLM's ability to quote unquote think effectively. And what does that mean? Right? So thinking effectively means it has to understand the query, accurately interpreting a user's request or assigned tasks. You think about if you've used any of the Chat GPT or other related products, right? Or you just do a Google search. Does it understand your query? With an agent, can it plan a course of action? So it needs to be able to determine the steps and tools required to achieve the objective. If you think about the goal-based agent on that end of the spectrum, an AI marketing agent that autonomously manages advertising campaigns across multiple platforms to optimize for a specific conversion rate or return on ad spend, this needs to really understand the steps and tools required to achieve the objective. It needs to be able to reason about the environment, considering constraints, potential outcomes, and alternative strategies. You can think about this in the learning. The learning-based agent or the model-based agent is even actually a really good example of AI-powered inventory management. Predicting demand fluctuations based on historical data and external factors like weather patterns. When you think about this, and don't mean to overuse the word think, but having the agent and the language model being able to quote unquote think, this connects very well with the general tool agents benchmark, GTA. Right? Some of the challenges that are provided in that research and in the software that's being built for it really help test an LM's ability to think, if you will, in real world scenarios. Often the tasks involve implicit tool use, which means that the agent must reason about which tools are needed without explicit instructions. All right, if that sounds like a mouthful, just digress for a moment and remember, when we talk about agents, this is software that either your teams are building or a vendor is building and providing that are tools, and they're considered tools, if you will. Some of the large language models will call them a tool, but they are integrating with the model, right? So the model, when it starts to understand what a user is asking, it has to figure out which tool to go use. Okay. I would use and possibly look at the GTA benchmark to get some insights and guide your LM selection. As an executive, you should really consider the LLM's performance on benchmarks like GTA when making selection decisions. Keep in mind, this is still new. This is ongoing research. So it's a data point, and I'd use it as a data point. I wouldn't use it as the end all, but I'd use it as a data point. Or I'd have your teams use it as a data point, right? As one more thing to consider. You would see that large language models that excel in GTA's real user queries are possibly better equipped to handle the complexities of a practical business application. But again, a data point to think about. And if we think about a business example of this quote unquote think, let's say that a company wants an AI agent to schedule meetings. A basic agent might only handle simple requests like schedule a meeting with John tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pretty simple thing. A smarter agent with better quote unquote thinking capabilities could handle a more complex request like find a time for us to meet next week considering everyone's availability and time zones. This would illustrate a deeper reasoning that could lead to a more versatile and valuable AI agent. You could ask it a much deeper question, if you will. It's important as we discuss this and we discuss kind of selecting the right LLM and thinking about this quote unquote thinking step and tool integration that we really need to consider the importance of building agents that are not only intelligent, but also ethical, transparent, and compliant with relevant regulations. So make sure as you're thinking about this and you're selecting it, in the back of your mind is, let's build a responsible agent. Right? So ethics becomes a big thing, transparency, understanding the tool choice that it made. Which then that leads us into, as you think about the technical implementation, is the tool augmentation or tool integration. So when you're thinking about the transparency, right, the agent needs access to the right tools to take actions. Now, again, these tools could be an API for connecting to your CRM system, connecting to a robotic process automation tool for handling workflows, or for natural language processing libraries for analyzing text data. Right? So the tools could be APIs, especially if you're buying it from a vendor and you're buying an agent from a vendor, it's going to be configuring things. If you're building, this may be software that someone on one of your teams is going to build using an API to connect to these systems. And so augmenting LLMs with tools expands their capabilities. This is really the crux of what agents are doing. They're expanding the capabilities of large language models with what's called tools. This enables the models to access and process information. If you've recently used ChatGPT, you'll see that it has a little icon of like an internet icon to have it go and search the web. So you think about tools like web search. You think about something more, specific to your business of database queries. Or API calls allow agents to retrieve relevant information from various sources. Oracle's General Ledger agent that I referenced before and talked about in the previous episode, you think about that's getting data from multiple databases, multiple systems, to have all the relevant information to do financial decisioning. It could also perform actions in the real world. You can think about a tool being an email sender. The example we just had with the calendar scheduler. Or it could control a robotic process automation. Really empowering agents to take actions beyond just generating text. And it's really this integration between the large language models and the tools that are provided in these extra capabilities, where now it's not just generating text. Another piece of research that recently came out is a research paper called StreamBench, and it's towards benchmarking continuous improvement of language agents. So and in there they talk about logistics agents that are optimizing delivery routes, right? Regularly optimizing the routes that are being taken. That's really fascinating, but another piece of research, I'll provide the link below to it if you're interested in it, about how do you think about this continuous improvement. Now, the tools are not without the engineering challenges. Right? To effectively integrate tools, it's going to require careful consideration. You're going to possibly need to tailor tools to the use case, especially if you've made the buy decision versus the build. You're going to need to think about, okay, can we modify this and tailor it? Can we augment the design of this tool to really have it align with specific tasks that the agent needs to perform? If it's a build decision that you've made, it's the same thing, right? It's going to have to be, how do we design the tool that really aligns with the tasks? really diving into that use case you're going to implement and making sure the agent is really dialed in. You're going to want to have a user-friendly interface. In some cases, there may not need to be an interface at all, right? It may respond or react to data, which is perfect. There's no problem with that, right? It could be responding to events that happen. But if it's going to have a user interaction, you need to make sure that the tools are easy for the user to use. And also, you think about the LLM to understand and utilize. There's kind of two sides to it. There's a user-friendly interface of users that may want to enter in request, like the example of the scheduling. Find a time for us to meet next week, considering everyone's availability and their time zones. I'm going to have to enter that somewhere as a user. So what does that look like? How user-friendly is that? And the other user, if you will, of your tool is the LLM itself, because it needs to understand what tool to use. And you may think of, the first one of the user interface of the typical person that's the user. These are kind of prompt engineering, right? But really, you need to have the tool definitions and specifications within the agent's prompts, right? Really make sure that how it receives prompts, how it understands things are really kind of dialed in to help minimize errors. And then as you consider down this and you go down this path, if you will, you may want to take into consideration some agent frameworks. Things like LangChain, which now there's a framework called Langsmith. Or Hugging Face recently had small agents. They provide libraries and tools that could streamline the agent development, allowing your development to be faster. A lot of these tools can handle tasks like parsing agent output, managing memory, and integrating tools. In this case, managing memory is not where you think about like computer memory. Yeah, this is managing memory where you could think about, like, say, your chat history, right? That type of memory, right? The conversations that have been on. So leveraging these tools, LangChain, Hugging Face, others, for building agents with complex reasoning and planning could really speed up the development process and make things much easier for you. As you continue down here and down this path, real world agents aren't static. They need to be able to learn and adapt over time. In the Stream Bench research, some of what they've done is put together a benchmark really designed to evaluate an agent's ability to improve continuously. Some of the key takeaways from that is the importance of feedback. Agents need to be able to learn from feedback, which can range from simple binary signals, meaning correct or incorrect, to more detailed critiques. Right? So providing it feedback so it could learn. Being able to update the agent's components. So if it could get the feedback and learn, then continuous improvement could involve refining prompts, expanding memory, so how much data it's holding, or even adjusting the large language model's parameters. The next step then becomes this potential for multi-agent systems, where you may be able to share memory across multiple specialized agents that could significantly enhance the overall performance. This is all part of what's called continuous learning. If we tie this back to the meeting scheduling agent, now let's imagine that it initially struggles with complex time zone conversions. Right? Maybe there's people we're trying to schedule a meeting for that are in let's say San Francisco and Chicago and New York and London and India, which always kind of messes people up because it's got like the half hour, and let's say Australia and New Zealand, right? So let's imagine we're trying to set up a meeting with all these people in all these time zones, and the agent struggles initially with it. Through feedback and continuous learning, the agent could refine its understanding of time zones and improve its scheduling accuracy over time. Really, the important thing here is the value of building agents that are not only quote unquote smart, but also capable of learning over time and growing. So feedback loops for agents is very important to take into consideration. As you go through and think about implementing, and it doesn't matter if it's a build or a buy decision, think about some real world evaluation of the agent. You could use data sets like what's in the general tool agents for testing multimodal input. Again, multimodal just being different modes. So text, images, right? Those are two modes, multimodal, in handling complex task completion. And also I would urge you to explore human in the loop feedback mechanisms for better oversight. So as you think about the implementation, I'd like you to contemplate how can continuous learning and iterative improvement be incorporated into your AI agent projects? And then also take into consideration of, does your organization have the internal resources to build AI capabilities? Or should you again explore pre-built platforms? So tax on to that, build versus buy, but really needs to be taken into consideration of where are you on the journey? And there's been rapid advancements in agents, and they have quite a transformative potential. And the growing attention they're receiving is also happening from governments worldwide. So there is certainly a need for governance in how do we handle these. When I talked about building responsible agents, right, this is going to come up in things that you need to kind of think about. And depending upon your industry, you may be more exposed or have more considerations to deal with. You think about the regulatory landscape. High-risk systems are going to require pretty stringent oversight. And this may be not governmental oversight. It may really be stringent oversight within your organization. What if it's wrong? What are the implications there? What if it's biased? What are the implications? Right. So minimal risk tools, they need transparency, but probably limited regulation. Right. If it's a simple reflexive agent that's doing chat and based upon keywords, it's routing, messages to a customer service agent, it needs transparency to understand the decisions that were made, but arguably probably not a lot of regulation. Things that have been coming out, the EU now has an AI Act. This is a risk-based approach where there's a classification of AI systems from high risk and the obligations for developers and deployers. So this ends up, being implications for general purpose AI models, which are particularly relevant for AI agents. China is looking into this as well. They have a focus on content control, on algorithmic transparency, and the registration requirements for AI service providers. And in the US, there's been an executive order, and the US's really emphasis is on national security, fostering innovation, but really looking at NIST and developing standards and guidelines. And you'll see industry initiatives that are happening, and clearly also self-regulation. So you need to balance government regulation with also industry initiatives. There's the partnership on AI, guidance for safe foundation, model deployment, and voluntary AI safety commitments from major tech companies. So you can look at those as well and think about how can you adopt some of those. And so it's important to adopt and possibly adhere to industry standards and best practices. And I clearly would look at things being developed by NIST, other organizations. This can help your company demonstrate not just compliance, but also build trust and mitigate risks. So as you build out these capabilities, as you've built out perhaps your AI strategy, as you're adding in perhaps your AI agent strategy, think about developing policies for internally for AI guidance, AI governance, and develop policies for data privacy and compliance, ethical decision making that's aligned with corporate values, and give tremendous thought around establishing explainability standards for decisions that are made by agents. Right? Make sure that you dig into this and you could understand how did it make a decision. And there are lots of emerging challenges in this space, such as unintended bias, ethical misalignment, and transparency. I could think about there's lots of cases of AI being used for job candidate, matching and, evaluating resumes. They could be biased. So you have to just think into this. Ways that you can mitigate this is making sure that you're conducting bias audits when a model is being developed, if you're developing a model, or when you're selecting a model. And make sure that you could have explainability. And important with that is that you could interpret what's being explained for all stakeholders. So all up and down the organization, can people understand how an agent makes decisions and interpret those results? And these agents really do rely on data to understand context and to make decisions and to learn. And I mentioned earlier that data is the foundation of this. So you really need to ensure as you go down this journey that you have high quality data. It's accurate, it's clean, it's relevant. Right? This is really essential for agent performance. Make sure that you have data security and governance. Make sure that there's security at every level. AI agent security extends beyond data protection. You'll need to consider access control. And limit the agent's access to only the systems and data necessary for the task. Code security. If you're building agents, make sure that you're following secure coding practices. It should make sure that there's monitoring and ordering. It's ethical by design. And lastly, make sure that there's human oversight. Having human review and approval for critical decisions made by agents is a fantastic idea. So think about and really give some thought to, as you go down this path, what governance policies can your organization develop to ensure ethical AI implementation of an agent? So the key takeaways I think you have from this episode are one, making sure that you align your agent initiatives with clear business goals to really solve specific pain points. Evaluate whether to build or buy a solution based upon internal capabilities and your customization needs. Implement the agents iteratively, right, with a focus on continuous learning and real-world evaluation, right? And start small. Make sure you establish robust governance frameworks to address ethical considerations, unintended biases, and compliance needs. So your next steps: identify one high-impact, repetitive task within your organization to pilot with AI agents. Put together a cross-functional team to evaluate a build versus buy strategy. Begin drafting internal governance policies. You may already have them. Think about developing a feedback loop for iterative improvement in AI agent deployments. So if you're going down this path, those I think are your next steps to take. And again, AI agents are not just tools. They really do represent a transformative opportunity to redefine operational excellence and decision-making in your organization. That's all for now. Again, the references to some of the research I mentioned will be in the show notes. If you have any questions at all, if there are certain topics you'd like me to discuss, please reach out. Thank you for your time. Until next time.